everybody, Master Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Beautiful day today. I just wanted to jump in and get right into it. Some updates. We've done a lot of decorations and kind of cleaning up the academia a lot. It's looking fantastic. I can't wait to have people come in and see it this weekend, and just so much going on. I also uploaded some links from some older training videos on the Capoeira online class, so please check it out. I've been so busy with the new CD and with everything going on that I just decided that I'm going to start making more new videos from next month for the Capoeira online class. So the next 3 classes are older videos, but they're really good, and I hope you guys like them. I'm juggling a lot of things at one time, and I know you guys know, so, well, here we go. Okay, last week, I did a podcast on where I talked about getting stopped by the police and how the profiling, how racism works here. And the week before, I talked about kind of a academic or a word of experience, a reflection on the difference on how I see racism as perceived by the United States and culture, by United States culture and by Japanese culture. So please check out those podcasts before you get into the second one from last week. And of course, before you get into the one today. So now, last week was, how I got stopped by the police and the microaggressions and everything. This week, I want to talk about things that I really love about Japan. And it's really important to give, as much of a full story as I can. So here we go. All right. Growing up, background, on the border of San Diego, welfare, single mother from Mexico. She got welfare subsidies for and housing Section 8 and food stamps. And when I say food stamps, I mean like the old actual paper ones. And she was taking care of 4 kids as best she could, and I understand that. But the money was only for my brother and I, who were underage. So it made 5 people surviving on the welfare of 2 kids. So you can imagine how interesting that was. And I remember about the age of, I want to say 8 maybe, on the lower left side of my jaw, one of my teeth grew out a little bit and got impacted. It came out weird, when sometimes it does as a kid. And a huge infection. My jaw was swollen up. It looked like somebody hit me with a baseball bat on the side of the jaw. And I'm screaming, I'm not screaming because screaming would only piss my mom off, but I was hurting, and finally we went to the dentist in the morning. Now, the dentist in the morning, we would use something called Medical. I can't remember exactly what it was off the back of my head, but it was these little green stickers, I guess is the best way you can imagine it, and they would peel it off, and it was like insurance for poor people. And I remember the dentist in my neighborhood, I can't reflect on it because it was really young and it's very traumatic and a lot of things, but having health insurance, and I know that's a big issue in the United States. And if you're American, my nephew's visiting with his beautiful and incredibly amazing a girlfriend, and she's shocked about when I tell her jokes, not jokes, but the truth about health insurance here in Japan. As anywhere, you can have a good doctor and a bad doctor, but one thing that's good is in Japan, wow, the health insurance is by hands down probably the biggest thing I love right now, especially at my age and having kids. Health insurance, for example, here in Tokyo, and it does change by area you live in Tokyo. So we are part of the national health insurance system in my family, and it includes dental insurance. You hear me? Dental insurance. is included. Not only is it incredibly affordable, but if you find good doctors, it's so good. My dentist is fantastic. The dentist is actually the landlord, and it used to be next to Samba de Seria when we had the restaurant. So I have a beautiful relationship with him and my family, and we all go there for our dentist, and it's just fantastic. I had an operation on my knee about, I want to say 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. I had what do you call it? The meniscus disc was leaking. So they had to get like I don't know what they call it, microscopic surgery. They went into my knee and cut off a little bit of the meniscus disc. And I had to spend it's in and out service in the United States, but in Japan, because of the way the system works, you have to stay in the hospital for 5 days. I got out after 4. Including everything, my doctor was recommended to me by my friends who knew him, and he's a sports guy. And he said it was the doctor for knees, especially on knees, for the Japanese Olympic ski team. So this guy was phenomenal. In his office, he had certificates from the United States, from Europe. Great doctor, spoke English. At the end of the 4 days, with medication, with the operation, with everything, it was about, at the time, about $800. No, that's not the deductible. That's the cost. So everything was about $800 for a knee. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I was doing backflips again. So health insurance here is something that I really love about Japan. Secondly, it goes without saying, even though there's racism, there's discrimination, things can be wild, whatever, Japan is incredibly, for me, Japan is an incredibly safe place. Even going out, getting drunk back in the day or whatever, you never really worried about getting like hurt or jumped. Yeah, there were times like when I first came, they were doing like young men or young guys Japanese guys would jump like foreigners, or something that I want to say oyajigari, which means like mugging older Japanese men who were drunk, which is kind of funny because you don't really need to do anything if you really wanted to, because they generally were passed out. You could just take their wallet. But I'm saying in Japan, the safety is such a good thing. The other thing I would talk about is it's a cultural concept. Again, I mentioned that things like we say in English, especially from an American perspective or Australian, because I see it's similar, and British, because it's based on the kind of Judeo-Christian values. When we use the word kindness, I would say, in my opinion, it's pretty much the same anywhere, but because of the safety and how things work here, especially after a long-term relationship with my local area here, I've been here in Magome for 20 years, kindness is beautiful. I can't even go down to the station, like walk down to get a cup of coffee or anything without saying hello to the joke is to 10 or 20 people. So at least for me, being part of the community that I'm a part of here, where I know a lot of people, it's one of the greatest things that I've built for myself and for my family. Now, don't confuse that with people not being weird, right? Generally, I've mentioned this before, I'll walk down the streets and there's nobody in the street, and it's just me and another foreigner coming literally right past me. And it's generally white foreigners who've got some weird stuff going on here, where they'll walk right past you and not even look at you. And I say that because generally, if it's like a Vietnamese person, because you can tell if you've been here long enough, Vietnamese or Chinese looking or Korean looking or of African looking, of African descent or of Brazilian descent, you can tell when someone's like half or something. And generally, we always at least nod. So there's a lot of weird people here. I know, like my nephew calls them a weebs. I'm not sure if that's the correct word to use, but I think a lot of people here weird out and try to be like assimilate when you can't assimilate in Japan, in my opinion. In Japan, you can only find your space. You know what I mean? Your role in the giant play that is Japanese culture. So for me, when I see people acting like trying to be Japanese here when they're foreigners, it's probably the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And for me, 23 years, I found my space and I've adapted, but I would never say I'm assimilated or I understand what it is to be Japanese, or I can tell you what it's like to be a foreign person living here in Japan for over 20 years and how that is. But I just sometimes find it really weird when people walk down and you're like, hello, or nod and they just blank you. They just ignore you. It's strange. But that's another podcast onto itself, because I could tell you guys 100 stories like that, and a lot of people have had those there. The last thing I would talk about Japan that I really love, and maybe this isn't good for a lot of people, but I like to drink, and I love having a good time, having beers with my friends and tasting different things. And one thing that's really nice about Japan, it doesn't have the stigma about alcohol that the United States has. It never had a prohibition. It never had that Judeo-Christian, white, right, American, alcohol is bad. So as long as you do your job and you're not disruptive or you're not causing problems and you're a good husband, wife, if like some people might say it's a functioning alcoholic, but I don't think so. I think it's just people who use it either for stress release or social gatherings or whatever. But I really like the fact that it's not the same way that it is back in the States. Like, oh my God, you're such a bad person. Oh, you've had 5 beers this week. Oh my God, you're an alcoholic. It's kind of weird, but that's one of the other things that I really love. And I guess that's, pretty much, what I wanted to talk about this week. If I had to choose to change anything since I've been in Japan, I don't think I really would have, because one thing that Japan has taught me when it comes to living here is that everything, especially relationships, take time. I've mentioned this before, that if you think you have a Japanese friend and you haven't known them for more than, I want to say, I kind of almost want to say 10 years because I've been here a lot longer, but if you haven't known them for more than about 10 years, then they're really not your friend, because it's more, there's a word called shiriai, which is more like acquaintance, because being someone's friend in Japanese society also means you kind of have responsibility to them. And because Japanese really don't like having responsibility to other Japanese because the social pressure is so heavy, a lot of times they say, oh, it's shiriai, shiteru hito, like I know that person. But they rarely will say tomodachi. So if you want to know if someone is your friend, it takes time, especially here in Japan. But guys, that's what I think, and I hope you guys like this little podcast. Next week, I'll have to think of something more entertaining to say, but I really love doing this. So much is going on, and I've got the new CD coming out, and I'm just having a blast doing everything. Guys, as always, thank you for your support. Thank you for your love, and thank you for your inspiration. Mestre Sukuri, Tokyo, Japan.